Well, hello, folks. It's another Wednesday, and we are back to rank yet another puzzle game for the Game Boy Portable Entertainment System. Whatever it would have been called at the time. Anyhow, this is currently game number 64. I guess technically week number 63, because there was that one episode where we did 2 games, and I'm not going to do that again. Though this is an episode that might make me regret that decision, because this is probably the last of the games that I really wasn't looking forward to doing. This is a game called Koro Dice, or if you're white like me, Koro Dice. It is a dice-based puzzle game. We'll just jump into it, and you'll get a sense of what I'm talking about here. So, mode select. Easy, average, hard. Let's start with easy. I said easy. No, I want easy. Okay. Level select. I'm thinking level 1. I'm thinking let's start at the beginning. Okay. So, this is the gist of this game. Is you need to roll the die in a way that when it lands on the target square, the number at the top matches the number Okay, there we go. Trying to get that other guy out of the way. There, that'll do. So what was with those H's? Okay. Yeah, I think I'm already doing better at this than I was in my practice run. But sooner or later we're going to hit sort of the biggest obstacle of this game, which is figuring out how to get the die to face the right way. And that's a hole. Oh, we're over here now. So that's still a hole. That's where the 1 is. Yeah, so if there's a trick to manipulating the die so that the number lands where I want it to, I don't know what it is. Seems like going down 2 spaces and left 2 spaces, you sort of land on the same number. So like we're on the number 5, if I could we're on 5 again. So from here, that's a hole. Is that the same hole? I can't even... Yeah, so that doesn't have the same effect. I'm glad I noticed that pattern just in time for it to not work anymore. Yeah. Nudge the volume down a little. So we're on 1. If we go down, down, da, 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 da. Okay, if I can get it to land on 5 on the adjacent square, that will also work. That's a hole. It's still a hole. So, okay, and then No, it's... I took this whole land on 5 thing a little too seriously, so... 4? That's a hole. I just don't... I don't know what... We'll go 1, 2, 3, 4... This seems like the kind of game that makes perfect sense to a particular kind of person. And I don't know that I'm necessarily that kind of person. I mean, I'm clearing some of these stages in 8 seconds and other ones in 5.5 minutes. Well, she's excited. Or she's paid to look excited. I don't know. Kind of feels like the obstacles don't really need to be here. You know, like... Like, I'm kind of already stuck, even without having to contend with, you know, hidden trapdoors and slides and... Again, I'm certain that there's someone out there for whom this game would be way too easy if it didn't have all of that stuff. And that person is not me. And just a lot of that has to do with the kind of, like, spatial awareness necessary to recognize what side the die is going to land on when you rotate it. So, like, instead of this being a game where I'm sort of thinking through the solutions here, I'm mostly just rolling around in circles and hoping for the best. And I feel like I don't necessarily need to sit here and try to convey why that doesn't really feel like solving a puzzle. It's like where this kind of ends up really not landing for me is just kind of juggling the amount of stuff that's going on. And I'm sure there's like specific moves that you can do. Because like where it was like, say, like move it to the left twice and then down twice and it'll land on the same number. There's probably a bunch of different maneuvers like that that you sort of learn and figure out. But then you're also contending with holes and this damn thing blocking your path. Okay. And to some extent, I'm kind of well, maybe not secretly, but you know, just kind of hoping that I can kind of dumb luck my way into the solution. But like if I fall in enough holes and jump on enough springs and kind of warp myself around enough times, well, that's not gonna work. It's like I need to be on I can't be on 1 when I'm on this square. Just... And so if I just repeat this enough times, will it eventually work? No, it doesn't seem to be. Now it's not working. And so, yeah, like the placement of the arrows and the traps and the little square that blocks your movement, it's all clever. It's all very well done. But it kind of feels like it's in service of nothing. Because just the base game is so friggin' complicated. And I think you could also make the complaint that, you know, we're now up to... Hey, Hey, tambourine lady, play me a song. Yes, stage 21. And I don't know, I was about to complain that they haven't added any new mechanics. But I guess the more I think about it, the more I probably would complain if they did add a bunch of new mechanics. So we'll put that one aside. But yeah, no matter as much as I just keep going at this, I still feel like I'm just kind of dumb lucking my way into the solutions here. Yeah, I feel like I'm just turning my brain off and just rolling the die around at almost complete random. So again, now... But I do know that if I had land on a 1 on this square, I can translate that into finishing the level. But that's going to involve figuring out how to land on a 1 on this square, and that's kind of not happening at the moment. Alright, there we go. And the springs don't always launch you in the same direction, and... Give me a second. Well, before we move on here, I just want to check real quick to see what average... Let's jump up to hard and see what it does. Okay, so hard, you just have kind of a restrictive time limit, it would seem. I guess what's average then? Three minutes. One other quirk about this that I've noticed is that in order to roll the die, because of the perspective that they're using, in order to roll the die over the target square, you can't see where the 1 is. If you can see the 1 on either of the adjacent squares, it's just already wrong. And that kind of by itself complicates things. So like if the target square was in the right corner instead of the left corner, then you could at least position the die in such a way that, you know, you'd at least be able to see the 1 on one of the sides. Also, if it was in... The ideal location would be if the target and... if the die and the target square were swapped. So that the die started in the bottom left corner each time, and the target square was in the top right. You'd at least be able to kind of see what you're doing a little better. And maybe that would be something? Like, and you can kind of see where, you know, the presumption would have been that, you know, that these sort of trap squares and that this would all be like something you would have to factor in order to solve the puzzle. But in reality, it's really difficult to factor that stuff in because it just the basic mechanics of the game are such that just getting like the core gameplay to sort of work properly is just such a fight on its own. And that's time. We're done. Okay. Oof. So I think there is probably a particular type of personality for whom this game makes just perfect sense on its face, and yeah, that there's just no randomness to it at all. Whereas when I play this, I'm just kind of pushing buttons and hoping for the best. And it's not a good way to make a puzzle game. And, I mean, sometimes it just happens. There's a game for the Nintendo DS called Medios, where you just kind of slide the stylus up and down across the touchscreen, and you usually end up doing better than if you actually play the game properly. There's a few other games that are like that. It's one of those things that just happens sometimes, but I think here it's the version of this game that makes sense. There's two versions of this game that make sense. One is where you have a set number of moves and a reset button. And so you need to get this die from here to here in this many moves. And every move needs to be very exact. And I don't know that I would love that game either, but I would understand it. The other one is the game where the number on the die doesn't matter. And it's just all about navigating, getting the obstacles to line up such that you reach the end without accidentally blocking yourself. And I think that ends up being the better of the two games. It feels like they tried to combine those two ideas of like a game where you have to sort of navigate this little maze-like area with little hidden traps and things, but also a game where where you need to strategize how the die lands on each square in order to get it to land on the correct square at the end of the puzzle. And at least that's my analogy for it. I know I've sort of described a lot of these puzzle games in that sort of way, that there's like two potential games in there and they don't cooperate with each other. And in this case, I think I'm abstracting it a bit. I don't think it's as clear cut as that. But the basic idea is kind of the same. No, it isn't. I want to walk that back a little bit. Because it's not that there are two ideas that conflict, it's that one of those two ideas renders the other one completely irrelevant. Just the way the game operates, there's not a lot of good reason for the stages to have obstacles. Like, even as I'm like falling into holes or getting stuck on one-way paths, like I'm not thinking that much about it. Like I'm just, they just ends up being background noise. It's just things that happen in the process of trying to get the die to land on the right square. And so, or the right number, I should say. And so the game just kind of, I was going to say doesn't work, but it does work. It works. It does what it sets out to do. But it's... you don't feel like you're in control of what's going on. I think that's ultimately kind of the issue, is it's hard to feel in control of the game when, again, there's this element where you need to make these very precise moves, and then there's this other element that just kind of throws chaos into it, and again, like the chaos ends up not really mattering in the end. You end up just ignoring it because the getting the die to land on the right number, it just requires so much more attention. It's just not good. It's ultimately is kind of the main thing, is it's not as good as Cool Ball. But it is better than Godzilla. It is better than Brainbender. It is better than Frankie, Joe, and Dirk on the tiles. I think there's a lot of games in this little block here where it kind of... it feels more playable at first blush until you kind of get stuck into it. And I just... is it better or worse than Bloatia? It's hard to say. It's such an apples and oranges kind of situation. Because, again, Bloatia, the main concern was, you know, sort of the tile puzzle thing, but also sort of the timing aspect. You know, having to kind of solve these puzzles with the way that it controls and with the kind of the speed that it demands. And this game, well, I was going to say it doesn't really demand speed. If you play on easy, it doesn't demand speed. And between you and me, just play it on easy. The time limit doesn't really add anything. At least it doesn't seem to. I can't imagine. You know, it's just a game of that time. They had time limits. I want to put it below Bloatia because I'm so irritated right now, but I don't. There is a part of me that says, no, you're not being fair. And, I mean, aside from that one commenter who felt that I wasn't being fair to Bloatia, you know, so I guess, you know, matter of perspective. Ugh. And I can say with these three games in particular, I had a similar feeling of not really being in control of what was going on. Arguably dexterity as well, but I think these three in particular, just things just kind of happen. And I think this game is... it's easier to control. It's more intuitive to control, but what it wants you to do is a little more... I think you could potentially have more fun with this than with Splits. But that's as high as it goes. Koro dice. And I do believe, like I said at the beginning, I think that's the last of the games on here that I was kind of dreading playing. So, yeah, I'm just looking at the list right now, and yeah, it looks like there's some unknown quantities in here, but there's, oh well, maybe there's that. Well, I think that might be the last of them though. So maybe one last game that I'm kind of dreading. But you know, Koro Dice is our new number 58. That means we have 64 games on the list. So if I'm trying to get sort of back into my routine, game number 65 has to be something that I know is going to rank well. And I'm looking at a game right now that I think is going to rank pretty well, and that is a game called Tetris Plus. Now if you... you know what? I'm going to save it for my preamble next week. We're going to call it there. So, yeah. Tomorrow, I'll be doing live improvised music, music production on Saturday, and on Monday, we're going to play some more Master of the Monster Lair and something else for the Game Gear, but I haven't decided what. It might just do Game Gear variety for an hour. And Tuesday, Etrian Odyssey, and then Wednesday, this time next week, we're going to play Tetris Plus. And it's probably going to rank pretty high because it's a Tetris game. But until then, thank you for coming by, thank you for hanging out, thank you for watching, and as always, I do hope to see you next time. So bye for now.